Hello and welcome to another episode of the Peak Podcast, where we interview coaches, thought leaders, and entrepreneurs on those peak moments that they had, those leaps of courage that they took to pursue something they're passionate about, or maybe it was their calling. If you guys don't know, we run Peak Fulfillment Coaching. It is a solo retreat program allowing people to find clarity and learn how to disconnect through a 3-day self-guided solo retreat and mastermind program. If you want to learn more about that, check out peakfulfillment.co. But today we're here with Laura Stone. She's an incredible chief catalyst at laurastone.com. If you're on TikTok, check her out at Laura Stone Leadership. But without further ado, I'd love to chat with her. So welcome to the show, Laura. It is amazing to have you here on this awesome Thursday.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Yes. Laura, where are you based out of again?
I am based out of the Boston area, just south, actually, Rhode Island. I keep saying Boston because that's where I'm born and raised. Moved down here a few years ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you enjoying it? You enjoying that spot?
I can't believe how much I am enjoying it, actually. I will admit I am a former, well, my husband will tell me I still am a Bostonian, a snobby Bostonian, because Bostonians don't know about Rhode Island. They either go east to Cape Cod or north to Vermont and New Hampshire, but this little gem of an island that they call Rhode Island is just amazing. So yes, thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
Right on. Well, I think it's super important to love where you live, right? I mean, is that something that kind of goes into your veins, your heartbeat, your passion? Are you love where you live?
And I do. I am a walking advertisement now for the state, but I have to say I wake up and every day, and I know this sounds really hokey, but I have a morning practice of gratitude, and I look outside my window and I can't believe I get to live here. And it's just one of these moments. And I rebuilt this home I call my sanctuary for my family, for myself. And like, I pinch myself. I'm just incredibly blessed and excited. And it doesn't have to be like it's not a gargantuan place, but it has everything. It's just beautiful.
That's awesome. You and I think very similar in that vein. Love where I live as well. I have a massive amount of gratitude for the spot. And I journal every morning. I do a lot of gratitude journaling every morning and every evening. And it comes up almost every time, which is grateful for where I live and the things that I have in this town.
I know, right? We are so lucky. I think it's also our mindset that we have chosen this, but I do believe I have the same kind of thing with gratitude. You're more diligent than I definitely do it in the morning. Evenings.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've gone back and forth on both and just decided to do both. It's something about waking up, and I'll tell you the reason why I do it at night. I tell everybody about this. The reason I do it at night is in the subconscious mind, putting gratitude out there actually allows me to wake up being a lot more proactive versus reactive. So I hate when my schedule or the things around me control what I'm doing, and like I'm kind of a slave to my calendar or a slave to my workday.
Yeah.
When I do this gratitude practice at night, I wake up and I'm actually more proactive. So I'm playing offense. And it's been really cool and something really different. I like the morning session, but the evening one actually fuels me more for the next day. If that makes sense.
All right. I am sold once again. I will do my best because I have an app that I love called the 5-Minute Journal. And I got to say, I don't have anything to do with it, but I just love it. And it does ask me at night.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah. Well, Laura, let's get into this. So give our audience just a little background on who you are and what you're up to right now.
So I have been in the leadership development field for decades. And I have to say there's one primary question that has kept me interested, intrigued. Like, I can't believe I'm going to say that this was something that at age 16, I started getting exposed to leadership. And the one question has been, what makes a great leader great? And It was that question that over time, I just keep reading and learning and growing. And I've really synthesized it down to 3 major areas that interest me most. One is around what I call self-leadment, which is, I couldn't come up with a better name. So it's self for self-awareness, lead for leadership development, and MEANT, MEANT, about being conscious and intentional. So that's all about what goes on the inside, kind of like what you do when you're coaching people and you're going off their adventures, is to help them go inside.
Yeah, exactly.
The second major piece is foundational is purpose, around both individual and team purpose. And this has been something that I've written 3 books about. My 3rd book, which I'm super excited about. We'll talk about that in a moment. the last piece is around inclusion. It's really looking at how we think about the world, not just color, skin, not just about gender, age, but really about what makes all of us unique, like that fingerprint.
Sure.
And what was the story and journey that got us here? And how well do we really tap and leverage those strengths and stories of each other
Sure.
to bring us together?
Man, how cool. I love the self-leadment. You have a lot of similar tones and buzzwords that you use in your coaching style and what we do.
Yeah.
One that sticks out to me is clarity, because we talk about that all the time, and that is like the outcome. That's really the outcome of our program,
Yeah.
where you blend a lot of this stuff. Tell me about the word courage. What does that mean to you?
So this is a big one, because courage, I think, to me, is all about having that emotional fortitude to do something just when you feel so fearful, and yet you know it's right, and it's like in your bones, in your like DNA, in that moment, and it
Right.
pushes you over the edge with a little bit of fear and excitement.
I
That's
love it. I love that. I've kind of followed my whole career and journey around that word, the word kind of risk as well. The two categories that I put the stuff that I love is in risk and courage. So
yeah.
I love hearing into what like your perspective is on that. What do you think defines a good leader? Like if you were to say, or okay, actually, it's kind of a two-part question. I'm going to say, what do you think defines a good leader? If you had a couple bullet points or at least some phrases around that. And then is there somebody in your life or in the public eye that you think is a good leader? It's kind of a two-parter.
Yeah, such a great question. So I've had to think about this really hard and fast right now, because we're in the midst of, we have a new program for emerging leaders. And those are the middle managers, the directors, people who have had 10 to 15 years,
Mhm.
and started really synthesizing down what is it that is they have to get in order to be a great leader. So
Sure.
you're asking like a perfect question right now that I've been rummaging around in. And I would synthesize it down to two of the main areas that I mentioned before about self-leadment. They really need to understand how their own brain and
Yeah.
heart works in terms of where do they go when the bleep hits the fan?
Sure.
And, what's their reaction time and what are their triggers, and knowing how to work with it
Yeah.
so that they can be conscious and intentional about when things aren't going well, how do they keep themselves to rise above? There's a great body of research. You're probably familiar with it. Shiraz Shameen, the book is called Positive Intelligence.
Mhm.
His work, along with another body of work called The Triangle of Disempowerment, is really a great way for us as leaders to know, are we in this little triangle or are we able to play in this bigger world? And when we get into a triangle, or if someone would say a box, we can't perform as well.
Yeah.
So I think great leaders understand when they get triggered, which we all do. It's not about being on like in our sage brain and being outside all the time, because that's impossible.
Totally.
So that's a major piece. The second is around purpose. This is a place that I've studied. I've taught at Harvard Business School. I was asked to work with Unilever's Top 300 with helping leaders think about their purpose. So purpose in this realm is individual leader purpose. It can be individual, just your own, but I think those blend together, because I don't separate work and the person. I think they join together, and who we are and how we show up is all about our integration.
So cool.
And then the second part of purpose is about the team. And that's the piece that I've just written this book finally. And I say finally because it's been a project in my head and the body of work for over 20 years. And this work has been what was the catalyst for CVS to eliminate tobacco and basically eliminate a $1.5 billion line item, which
Wow.
to talk about courage,
Sure.
that took a lot of work, fortitude, and courage, but they paid off in dividends for them. They were the first to market. To do that is a historic move that former President Obama had said, this is going to make a mark in our history. So those are two. And I think the third piece about what makes a great leader great is, that constant sharpening the straw of constant sharpening of the knife, and like what we have to do to keep ourselves up. And I think the work that you all do is really important, to be able to take time away, reflect. how do I want to be? Where are my goals? Where's my head going?
Sure.
What's my heart saying? And being able to have that kind of reflection so that they can lead well.
Exactly.
Because we can't lead. I don't believe we can do as great a job at leading others until we really do a great job at leading ourselves.
Couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more. You show up better for yourself, you show up better for others, and have that
True.
time away. Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. So thanks for sharing all that. I love hearing it. Our audience loves hearing from a thought leader in this space. What do you think is a good leader? And then kind of who is that? And you've mentioned multiple names. I would totally agree with you on almost all those points. When I look at a good leader, the things, and I don't know if you've heard this before or maybe you've thought this, but for me, a good leader is very empathetic.
Oh,
I've always thought of a good leader as very empathetic, very humble,
yeah.
high self-awareness. That's another thing that I think about. Like to your point, right? What are my triggers? How do I react? And then kind of reading a room.
Yeah.
And the last point about it is a reading the room blends into emotional intelligence for me. And I think it's so important for these leaders to do assessments and a lot of these different archetypes so that they know who they are, why they're the way they are. My co-founder and I, we did a really deep kind of extensive like co-founder boot camp, you can call it, where we spent 3 days and we did this kind of worked through this little retreat seminar. And I almost know him, not more than my wife, maybe more than my wife, almost about the same. And it's wild though, because now we did that and I know how he reacts. I know how to, say things that don't trigger him, or how to like put new things in front of him that will get the idea passed faster, because he leads with his gut intuition versus I lead with kind of numbers and analytics.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So I really, really love what you do and kind of some of the stuff you say.
I just want to build on something you're saying, because I
Yeah.
completely concur about the empathy and the emotional intelligence. I think the other thing that leaders, I just got off a coaching call today, and one of the things that this woman, and she's not alone, everyone does it. It's not a woman thing. It's a human thing, is having empathy towards ourselves.
Sure.
To be able to have, as a great leader, yes, we need to have empathy for others. I just want us also to have empathy and speak to ourselves the way we would speak to the people who are dearest to us and those who are most important. And what I find is a lot of leaders have a very tough self-talk, never good enough, beat themselves up, should have done this better, and don't take into account what actually went right.
Yeah.
And that's why I think your practice in the evening of gratitudes, when I do that once in a while, I also take into account, what did I do today that I'm really feeling happy about?
Yes, exactly.
And that's huge.
That's huge. And Laura, we are so similar. How we coach, how we teach, what we teach. Our students and a lot of the stuff that we talk about is exactly in line with what you just said.
Yeah.
And I really believe in that. And I really believe in the power of being proud of what you've done and look backwards. And that's really, we can only connect the dots backwards. We can't connect them forwards. There's an amazing book called The Gap and the Gain. Are you familiar? I don't know if you've heard that book, but
yeah,
we talk about it a lot, where it's like you measure success backwards. So where you started to where you are today, and you measure backwards. If you measure towards this kind of leap type of horizon, you're living in this gap mindset where you never have that. You're never going to be happy. It's always a pursuit of.
yeah,
And they kind of break that down and say, specifically the line of pursuit of happiness, right? That is kind of a false term, because you should be happy today and focus on today versus trying to pursue something like that. This horizon, this desert horizon that's always getting out there. So I love it, looking backwards and being proud of what you've done. And that's why that evening session, I think, is so important. What are the wins of the day?
yeah.
And I've told people on this podcast, I use this journal called Mantra Gratitude Journals, and it's a little bit more guided. And it's cool because it says, what are the wins of the day? What are your gratitude? What are things that you're grateful for today? And then it ends with what could make tomorrow better.
Beautiful.
Yeah, kind of cool. So, Laura, what about this book? Tell me a little bit about the book.
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't believe it. So thank you so much for asking, because this has been a labor of love. I joke about it. I'm going to hold it up. This is the pre-version of the book. So it's called A Pocket, so Team Purpose to Performance.
Okay.
And it's in a series where The first book was A Pocket Guide to Purpose, and it's for the individual. The second one has been for leaders to help you really land it for yourselves and for others. But this one is the process that we use for CVS and we've used for Dannon and TJX and a number of other big companies. But here's the juice of it. This is now meant to be in hands of leaders who are never going to be and never want to be in a Fortune 500 company, but lead a team and are really caring about their people. And the questions, there's 3 primary questions that teams rarely ask. And it goes in much deeper into the book. What is why are we really here? What is the work that only we can do as a team?
Sure.
Because there's a special secret sauce that each of the people on your team, including yourself, if you're a leader listening to this, who are unique and they bring a skill set, just like you were talking about with your partnership.
Yeah.
The second major question, what are the core paradoxes or tensions must we address that will help us accelerate and get to a place that will make us proud? And then the third major question is, what are the key outcomes or results? Not the actions we need to take right now, but what is it like that end state? So when you're thinking about what is it that if we see our purpose realized 2 to 3 years from now, what will it look like? And then there's so many other juicy pieces. And just for a note here, this is not your typical business book because even though when I was at Harvard and they would have all this reading, this is a picture book. So I'm going to just show you a couple of images where it's all about taking an idea and a concept and going on a trip.
Wow.
And being able to do it in a way that is much more open and joyful. And yet I give all the research in the back. There's all the end notes. So for those who want the research and the data, you're going to get it too. But the journey is such that over 65% of our population are visual learners. Yet what do? We create black and white books, tiny print. It doesn't work for us. We got to be different in how we approach education. And that's why I think videos like this are so powerful. People see, people hear. It's much more interactive in this way.
That's so cool. Wow. I love that. I love that book. And guys, whoever's listening to this, guys, go pick that up. That's such a cool book. It's so different. If you didn't just watch the video clip of Laura holding up the book and seeing those different visuals, very different, very, very unique. Laura, we're coming up to time here, and I'm gonna give you a great spot to share where people can find you. But before that, what is one actionable thing that our audience can take away from maybe a leadership perspective or a piece of inspiration that you would leave with an audience? What would that be?
I always am thinking about like the nugget, what I call quick and dirties is what we call it in our company, because there are these models that we've been able to synthesize down to like 1 to 4 pages.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell a very brief story. This happens to be probably the most popular quick and dirty we have, and it's about accountability.
Okay.
And as a leader to yourself and to others, is the gist of it is you need to have an understanding of what are you, and what I'm about to say is opposite or antithetical to what most people think leaders should do. But it's what are you unwilling, uncertain, or unable to do? And the reason why this is so important is this is where, as a leader, you get to a certain point and you have to delineate and let go of things you used to do in order to make that space for the work that only you can do that's much more strategic. The problem I see all the time with leaders is they are continuing to do the work of their people and it's where they work because they feel most comfortable and confident. Whereas what they have to do is let go and be willing. And this is the reason why I say unwilling, uncertain, unable is they have to be able to say to themselves, I am unable to do your job, the direct report, because you're closer to it, for instance. I am uncertain, and it doesn't have to be all 3. It can be one of these. Just one of these.
Yeah, exactly.
I am uncertain about what to do here because you're closer to this situation than I am. There's no possible way I would ever know as much as you. And the third thought, I am unwilling to do this because if I do this, I will not be able to do my job. I'm just giving you examples of what the thought could be. But this is what turned my world upside down when I started realizing leadership is way more about the inside job of what's going on in our thoughts than it is about the behaviors. And it's not that behaviors don't matter, but when they're incongruent, that's when there's a huge problem. So
Okay.
how well, and you brought up emotional intelligence, how well do you understand your own thoughts
Yep.
and the actions that follow to get certain outcomes?
So,
That's the opportunity we have.
Laura, that is absolutely amazing. The audience is going to love that. Where can they find you? If they want to reach out to you, get in touch, join, go through a program, find your book, where would that be?
Yeah, thank you. LauraStone.com, easy peasy. But TikTok, I have to say, if you have an account, it's just Laura Stone Leadership.
Okay.
And there's a ton of gems on there for free. I give away
Out.
so much content.
Okay.
Put together voice. Get it in.
Amazing. Well, Laura, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I love how we have so many similarities in common and things that we talk about and all that stuff. So thank you so much for being here on the Peak Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, and have a beautiful day.
You as well. All righty, Laura. All righty. You guys heard an amazing episode today, and thank you so much for being a part of that show. And like we talked about during that episode, please watch the video version. She kind of shows some of her book and the visuals involved in that. And she makes a great point. Most of us are visual learners, and just reading text doesn't get the job done. So thank you guys again for listening to the Peak Podcast. If you have not already, please sign up and subscribe. And we will see you guys on the next episode. See ya.